There are things in life we never even question, like our own name. You grow up, get used to responding when someone calls it, and that's it. But behind that seemingly innocent label, there's an invisible code that might be shaping your opportunities, your self-esteem, and even the way the world sees you. And the worst part? All of it happens without you even realizing. Strange, right? But this isn't some conspiracy theory, it's social psychology. We're talking about name bias, the relative age effect, nominative determinism, names that dictate social expectations, create shortcuts or traps, and influence everything from school performance to career success. And you know what's even crazier? Sometimes, just the fact that your name starts with a different letter can change the entire course of your life. So tell me this. How many times have you been judged before even opening your mouth? How many doors were closed on you because of a name that was hard, weird, or old-fashioned? And what if I told you there's a way to flip the script and turn your name into your greatest weapon? Take a deep breath, because after today, you'll never hear your name the same way again. Some people believe that life is purely the result of hard work, but those who observe closely notice something else. Hidden gears turning behind the scenes. Genetics, of course, plays a role. So does your social context. But have you ever stopped to think how the month you were born or your given name might be shaping your social identity without you even realizing it? Social psychology calls attention to this. There are invisible influences working in the background of your mind, shaping social expectations that impact everything from your self-esteem to your career path. It's as if life came with a hidden configuration, a kind of pre-installed programming that no one told you about. Yet it's there, silently affecting everything, from your friendships to your professional choices. People with unusual names, for example, often develop a stronger sense of identity and, in many cases, a more defiant attitude towards social norms. That's no coincidence. We're talking about unconscious influence, implicit egotism, and even name-based bullying, experiences that quietly shape who a person becomes. And this leads us to a curious paradox. What seems trivial, like a birth certificate, might actually be the first brick in the foundation of your destiny. Ever heard of the relative age effect? It starts back in childhood, and without anyone noticing, it can give some kids an advantage and put others at a disadvantage, all because of a random spot on the calendar. But don't worry, we'll get there. First, let's explore how this birth lottery influences something many people still think of as pure merit: athletic performance. Imagine two kids on the same soccer team. One born in January, the other in December of the same year. On paper, they're the same age, but in practice, there's almost a full year of difference in physical and emotional maturity. And at that stage of life, that's huge. The relative age effect means that those born earlier in the year are more likely to stand out in sports, receive more training, more praise, and, guess what? More self-esteem. It's not pure talent. It's chronology disguised as merit. This subtle favoritism reinforces social expectations. The stronger child gets more attention, becomes the example, while the other starts to feel less capable. Over time, this can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The one who's encouraged thrives, the one who isn't gives up, and this affects social identity, academic performance, and even future professional success. It's no coincidence that many elite athletes were born in the first half of the year. Coincidence? Almost never. What's even crazier is that this effect keeps showing up in other areas of life. We just stop noticing it. From sports, it seeps into the classroom, into the job market, and even into relationships. So if the month you were born already carries this kind of invisible weight, imagine the impact your given name can have the moment it shows up on your school records. Let's talk now about how alphabetical order might be influencing your life way more than you think. It sounds like a joke, but the first letter of your last name might have either given you a leg up or quietly sabotaged you back in school, and you never even noticed. In many classrooms, tests and assignments are graded in alphabetical order. Now imagine what happens to the kid at the bottom of the list when the teacher's already tired, out of patience, and correcting papers on autopilot. Small details like this snowball into real consequences, shaping self-esteem, academic performance, and eventually, even career success. And this effect doesn't stop at school. In job interviews, waitlists, even competitive exams, names that start with earlier letters show up first. And the first name seen always has a better shot at making a good impression. The most ironic part? No one talks about it. But this invisible sequence keeps opening or closing doors, creating unequal paths that have nothing to do with merit, and everything to do with the luck of having Anderson or Zimmerman on your birth certificate. This is where nominative determinism begins to creep into our lives. It's not just about letters. It's about the mental image your name evokes before you even say a word. Because, as you'll see next, there's a strange connection between your given name and the face you carry. And yes, people do judge the book by its cover, no matter how much they swear they don't. Have you ever met someone and thought, wow, he doesn't look like a Kevin? Yeah, that's not just your imagination. Studies show that people unconsciously associate faces with specific given names. And what's even more surprising is that they're often right. In a classic experiment, participants were shown photos of different faces alongside 5 name options, and most of them correctly identified who Dan was. That reveals how names and appearances interact in our minds. This happens because social expectations shape behavior. If someone grows up constantly hearing she looks like a princess just because her name is Isadora, she's likely to adjust her posture, her style, even her tone of voice to fit that mold. That's where implicit egotism comes in. The person internalizes the role others expect from her and unconsciously tries to match it. Over time, this cycle can shape one's entire social identity, from the friendships they form to how they present themselves in the job market. But what happens when a name and a face don't match? That's when things get even more complicated. Name-based bullying, subtle devaluation, even lost opportunities, all of it can start to creep in. No one says it out loud, but judging others by their name and appearance is a widespread and dangerous habit. Now, imagine what happens when not only does the name seem off, but it also carries a social stigma. Names with Arabic or African origins, or names considered unusual, face far more discrimination than most people realize. Ready to dive deeper into that? It's not just a feeling. The name you carry can open doors or slam them shut. In job recruitment, for instance, people with Arabic, African, Latino, or non-standard names receive fewer callbacks, even when their resumes are identical to those of candidates with more neutral or European-sounding names. That's name bias, an unconscious filter that affects self-esteem, education, and even the chances of social mobility. And the cruelest part? It all starts before the interview even happens. This dynamic quietly but deeply impacts social psychology. Given names carry stigmas that influence even personal relationships. Old-fashioned names, for example, are often the target of name-based bullying in childhood, which can lead to long-term trauma, fear of exposure, and low self-esteem. On the other hand, names perceived as elegant or elite tend to automatically command more respect, even when the person behind the name has no actual advantage. A name becomes a business card that people judge before even hearing your voice. And there's more. Name bias can influence how a person is treated in public spaces, medical offices, interviews, or even school. A different sounding name can cause a child to be constantly corrected, excluded, or misunderstood. Over time, that repetition shapes their social identity. But what if, instead of hiding their name, someone turned it into their personal trademark? The answer might lie in the stories of those who made the weird their greatest strength. Some people were born to stand out, and sometimes it all starts with an uncommon name. When a child is named Zephyra, Apollo, or Aurelia, they instantly spark curiosity. That early spotlight creates a different kind of social identity, more distinctive, more visible. And this shapes self-esteem and personality over the years. People with uncommon names tend to develop more autonomy, rebelliousness, and creativity. And it's not just a coincidence. Social psychology points to a fascinating phenomenon: nominative determinism. In other words, the idea that your given name can influence the profession you end up choosing. Ever noticed how many artists, designers, writers, or musicians have unusual names. That doesn't mean the name makes the person, but it nudges, provokes, and inspires. And when society pressures you to conform, a unique name can become a kind of permission slip to break the mold. Of course, it's not all about glamour. A rare name can also become a target for name-based bullying, name bias, and cruel jokes. But those who survive that experience often develop a tougher emotional shell and a burning desire to prove their worth. That's where implicit egotism often kicks in, the drive to show you're unique, special, relevant. And if your name already sets you apart, why not walk an equally singular path? Up next, you'll meet real-life cases that sound like movie scripts, but they're 100% real. Some things sound so absurd they must be fate playing a joke. But what if they're not? Ever heard of Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world, whose last name literally means lightning? Or Doug Bowser, who runs Nintendo and shares a name with the villain from their own games? These are aptonyms, given names that almost magically align with a person's profession. It seems like coincidence, but social psychology offers a curious explanation: implicit egotism. Here's the theory. We have an unconscious tendency to gravitate toward things that resemble us, including our own name. And that can subtly influence the choices we make. A guy named Baker might feel more comfortable opening a bakery than someone named Stone. It's not superstition, it's unconscious influence. The name creates affinity. Affinity becomes habit, and habit quietly shapes destiny. This phenomenon isn't a rule, but it raises a powerful question. How much of your life is truly a choice, and how much is subtly steered by cues you don't even notice? Aptonyms are just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath them lies a whole world of social expectations, molded self-esteem, and nominative determinism working in silence. And if even your name might be pushing you without your awareness, how do you think it's shaping the way you show up in the world every day? At the end of the day, your given name is far more than just a formality on an official document, whether it's a passport, a birth certificate, or a driver's license. It's almost like an invisible tattoo you carry everywhere you go. It shapes how others see you, how you feel about yourself, and even how you position yourself in life. And while nominative determinism and name bias are real, your name doesn't define everything. Can it influence you? Sure, but the one who writes the final narrative is you. It always has been. Your name can be a burden, a boost, or a tool. If it's ever made you feel small, invisible, or different, maybe it's time to give it new meaning. Turn what was once the reason for name-based bullying into a source of personal power. Use your social identity as a stage, not a prison. People with uncommon names have already proven that it's possible to turn discomfort into presence. But it takes a conscious decision to stop hiding behind shame and start owning your name as your personal brand. And when you decide that your name will no longer limit who you are, everything changes. You stop chasing validation and start moving through the world with more confidence. Self-esteem grows, professional success stops feeling like a mirage, and unconscious influence becomes your ally, not your obstacle. Your name is just the cover. You are the one writing the story. And now that you understand that, how about discovering how your name could actually change your life? So, after all this, do you still think your name is just a random mix of letters? Or have you started to realize it carries way more weight than you ever imagined? The truth is, your name can be either an anchor or an engine. It all depends on what you choose to do with what you've just uncovered. Will you keep accepting the labels? Or will you start using your story as fuel to build something greater? Think about it. How much of your path was shaped without you even knowing it? And what would change if you fully stepped into the role of author of your own identity, name and all? You have a unique signature, a personal brand no one else can replicate. The real question is, what are you going to do with it now? Let slip by, or use this knowledge to rewrite your path? If this lit a spark inside you, if it made you rethink even the most basic things about who you are, then do this right now. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here, we don't just drop curiosities, we give you the tools to change your life. And your next step starts now.